why don't we talk a little bit about a game that was very much a spiritual successor to Dead Space, which is the Callisto Protocol. This is a game that came out in December from a new studio called Striking Distance that is led by a gentleman called Glenn Schofield, who, speaking of Dead Space, was the original game director, if I'm not mistaken, on Dead Space.
Sounds about right, yeah.
And so this is very much as it was being, in its marketing cycle, shoot their tentacles, cut off their tentacles, like the back of the neck has the same health thing like Dead Space. Very much felt like this was going to be a Dead Space, truly a spiritual successor. So we were all jazzed about it. Boston Mike fell on the sword, bought a copy that we all played. And so here we are today to give our full review of the Callisto Protocol, played on PlayStation 5, copy provided by Boston Mike. So this is how I'd like for this to go. I do want to spoil this game, but let's not spoil it up front. Let's get to spoilers in a little bit. Why don't we start with just general impressions of the game? Maybe like how long we spent playing it, highlights, things that didn't work for us, game systems we liked, didn't like, kind of all that kind of meat and potatoes. And then let's jump into the story. We can talk about story beforehand. Let's just try not to spoil the shit out of it. And yeah, but we will be very clear when spoiler gloves are coming off. So the ground rules have been set, so we are safe for now of spoilers, but let's rip off the Band-Aid of what we thought with you, Boston Mike, since you did provide this game for the three of us.
Sure did.
Mike, what'd you think about the Callisto Protocol?
Oh, well, I'll start by this. I think that I liked it more than you guys because I've never played Dead Space. So I did kind of like this game, but the game does become a chore. And that is what got me pretty mad. I'm not as much of a gamer as you guys, although I'm aspiring to be. Thank you for having me on the podcast. And so this is one of the first few games since the past year or 2 years since I've really got back in a game that I finished. I'm trying to get 10 this next year. We're actually going to name some off. I bet I'm going to have them on this list by 10. So I got this game and I completed it. Probably took me 12 hours or so. If you want, I can run you through quick hitters of my good, the bad, and the ugly impressions.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. So the good, it looks fantastic as you're watching right now. It really does look great. The mocap is, I think, awesome. I think Josh Duhamel, sorry. He's great. He's just an awesome actor. And Karen Fukuhara, who is Kimiko in The Boys, she is awesome. So I really like that. That's kind of sold me off the bat. Kind of had that Death Stranding type of vibe where it's oh my God, I know this actor. They're in a video game. That got my attention. So I like that. The beginning is awesome. Pulls me in right away. I thought the beginning was friggin' sick. I was like, let's go. This is a cool story. What is going on? There's so many questions and you're trying to figure it out. And then it's not too long. However, the bad, why the hell does this game become so long? I feel like, because it's so hard. I played on easy to try to get through it quick. I don't know how somebody would play this on hard. It's overly hard as an easy game because I just wanted to get through it to give it to you guys.
Sure.
What the fuck happens in the back nine? We'll get to that. And then the ugly, these controls suck balls. I don't know who the fuck made this, but they clearly don't have
Glenn Schofield.
Yes, they clearly don't have two arms, or they had the controller on backwards. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe they had, maybe they had a Nintendo original type of controller, and then they just kind of forgot and went bad. The controls are so bad, and then the story just loses its luster, in my opinion, and we'll get to that.
Yeah, so I want to start with your second to last point, and I want to bring in you, Cayman, with the controls and the difficulty. Did you have this same experience as Mike, that the controls sucked ass and the difficulty was way too difficult, even on easy? Or what difficulty did you play on?
I played on easy as well because I was trying to burn through it to get it back to Mike. Because actually, Mike gave me the game before he finished it and was like, "Hey, I'm going out of town." Right. Mike was going to a wedding, so he's like, "Hey, you got a week to beat this game." So I was like, "All right, cool." I don't have as much time as I wish I would have. So because of that, I was like, fuck it, let's just play an easy. I don't have any qualms with that. Let's just roll. And while I will say that I think the game becomes much, much easier after the first act, the gameplay controls are, without a doubt, the clunkiest, most sluggish, just syrupy things I have ever laid my hands on. To the point that it was like any interaction I was having with enemies was just miserable. And not miserable because I'm like, oh man, like, oh, I don't want to go in that room because I'm going to get spook scared. Yeah. It was just like, I don't want to have any combat because the world is so gorgeous and gross and scary and spooky. Like the atmosphere is amazing. Like to Mike's point, like the opening hour, probably cool as hell.
Really good.
This trailer looks awesome. I want to I want to play this game.
Yeah. And there's moments where you end up in certain places that are just really cool and like make you like, they're just really scary. Like it is very scary, especially when you pop on like the Hue sync lights and everything's synced up. And it's like, you got like the flashing red lights when you're in like the danger zone or whatever. It's like, it's really cool. The problem is like the gameplay just sucks.
Yeah.
Yes, TurboTax. The gameplay sucks. And I think that's my biggest issue, right? Is like it's just frustrating when you're playing through it because it's not fun. Like that's my biggest thing is like at a certain point, it just doesn't become fun anymore.
I definitely agree with that. That at a certain point, it just doesn't become fun anymore. Because so I really agree that like the opening, because so you guys had both beaten this before I played it, and you had both been various degrees of lukewarm to bad to like okay on it. Yeah. And I was still like really confident that I was like, you know what? I feel like this game is going to click for me, even though it didn't click for either of you. And boy, was I wrong. Boy, was I dead wrong. I think there is good in this game. And I think I highly doubt Striking Distance will ever watch this review. But if they did, like, I really want to see Callisto Protocol 2. I think there is the potential here for a really, really special game.
Mm-hmm. This is the part. This is the exact part that we're watching. If you guys are streaming it, this is
which part that
right now that we're watching.
No, like about like what?
So there's some portions of this game for some reason, like once you go into like a door, you just can't go back out. And so where my load was, and the
checkpointing in this game is awful.
There's like 12 enemies and I have 6 shots, and I'm texting Cayman. I'm like, I'm never gonna be able to finish this game, and I'm not gonna restart it. I'm just screwed. And it took me, I had to run through it. I ran through it somehow. I got by, but yeah.
I will say, I actually didn't have any difficulty with this game. Like I actually, the thing I liked most about it was the combat. I had a lot of fun with the combat, but after a certain point, I was just so tired of it because once it happens, like once you kind of understand the dodging and like what's happening on screen now, the like pulling and like throwing people and using the environment. Like I really liked all of those different aspects of it, especially in rooms like this, where there is something that you can use in the environment to help get through this horde of enemies, whether it's like a spinning thing in the middle, whether it's like spiky walls where you can just grab people, throw them, and they're instantly dead. Like I liked that kind of. There are times in which they ramp up the difficulty, but they give you tools to get through it as long as you have ammunition for things. Like as long as you have the juice to do the pulling, as long as you have bullets and things. And I never ran into those difficulties. And so I didn't have the same like controlling issues that you guys had. I didn't use a different weapon until like act 3 of this game than the pistol and just the stun baton, because I liked just beating the shit out of people with it. But I think this game is like 3 times longer than it needs to be. And it's like a 9-hour game. It's like an 11 or 9-hour game. Like it's not very long, which is wild.
Absolutely.
And like, I don't, I also felt like, and I think depending on how this, the video that we have up here goes, like this is one of the few set pieces in the game where you're just like trying not to run into something and die. I feel like they spent too much time and resources on making this game gruesome instead of making it fun.
Okay.
Because,
okay.
And what I mean by that is I feel like when you, there goes one of them. You touch that fan and it just cuts you in half. And like, I'm sure, because there are a billion ways to die gruesomely in this video game. And I feel like that had to take a lot of time to program, to do art for, to animate. And like, I don't know. I've never been in game design. I've never developed a video game. So like, I might be talking out of my ass and I might be speaking from a place of like supreme ignorance here, but it just seems like at the end of the day, I feel like they spent time focused on the wrong things. And I don't know if you guys agree on that point.
So I want to point out something. So when they kept showing us video, like, here's some gameplay from the game, which is like what we're watching right now. It definitely feels to me after playing this game and then going back and watching this, that this almost feels like there is a new game plus, which by the way doesn't exist right now and won't until February.
I think it just came out actually. They streamlined it and fast tracked it.
Oh, they were able to get okay. Because the thing is like there might be some fun to be had in New Game Plus, but like the amount of times that they're able to pick up and like throw enemies, that doesn't happen in the game. It's those points in the game. There's no way that you could upgrade that. And I think the other thing too is like I'm all down for like inventory management stuff, but there's not an inventory management system in this game. It is you can either carry 6 items for the first like half of the game.
Yeah.
Or you can carry 9 items for the rest of the game after that.
I think it's 12, but you're right. Like it's like it never feels, because here's the thing. I think ultimately the vibe of this game is wrong. This is not a survival horror game.
No.
That's ultimately, I think, the crux of the issue. This is a sci-fi action game, but they build systems as if it's a survival horror game, like very limited ammunition. In terms of like some weapons are total dog shit until you put a lot of money into upgrading them.
Even then, I don't think that you even really see any like dynamic change in your weapons or anything when you upgrade it.
Yeah.
The alt fire is the only time that I felt like a weapon was significantly stronger. The problem with alt fire is that you just lost half of your ammo, and because your inventory is so small, you can't keep enough ammunition to even use it, so it's a useless upgrade.
Sure.
Yeah, the thing off of that point that really bothered me through this game. One, I just did the shotgunny type gun and then the pistol type gun and all I did was, instead of trying to upgrade my guns, I just bought as much ammunition as I can. Like, screw that, just did that.
Mm-hmm.
What's so annoying is that like the Resident Evil type of controls is just what they should have done, because then this game would have ruled. It would have been smoother. There wasn't this weird mechanism for defending, and then the inventory. If I could just combine the stuff that is the same stuff into one slot, like why does one shotgun shell or something will take up a whole slot and then the other one will have 24, and as you buy and just keep replenishing ammo, they just randomly assign them, and then I can't combine them, and then I just can't pick up other stuff. I just have random ammunition slots with non-equal numbers, and it's infuriating. It's just infuriating.
That's funny.
That's
I didn't have that
good
issue.
Point too. Yeah,
but I can see that really fucking up the vibe if I did have that issue. I also like going back to the design. How in the year 2023, although to be fair, this was released in 2022, how are we not able to move and continue playing while listening to goddamn audio logs?
God, thank fucking God someone said it.
I didn't listen to one of them because of that. I was like, I don't need to.
That was a struggle. I was like, I don't want to just sit here, because the thing is like just sitting there is not always a good idea.
Sure. Yeah. You're still in danger.
Unless you wipe out everything and you just, which the game, and I think that's what's frustrating too, is the game doesn't know whether or not you should kill all of the enemies or none of the enemies. And it doesn't really give you, like, Sure. There's a certain point in the game, and are we content with starting to spoil some shit here?
Yeah,
let's
we've been going for a bit.
Okay.
What were you gonna say, Mike?
I was gonna say, maybe before we spoil it, I'll just maybe I don't know if you guys do ratings, but I think this game is. I'm probably the highest one. I would give this game a 7, like
Out of
at the
10?
out of 10 at the peak of it. Because again, I haven't played Dead Space. If I played Dead Space, maybe it would be like a 5.5. But
Sure.
I'll keep it as a 7.
Yeah, this is solid for me. This is a solid 5 out of 10.
Mhm.
This just lands so mediocre. Like
I would actually fall right between you guys. I would say there's 6 with upside on this. Like if you love like a sci-fi story, if you love like really gory shit, you might find a little more like in this game. I love a sci-fi story. I don't care for gore. The sci-fi story they told didn't do much for me, which we'll get to in a minute with spoilers. And so that I think ultimately, like if I kind of go through different boxes, like gameplay, I feel like as a whole, the gameplay is fun, even though it eventually gets really boring. Like it becomes very rote, but the bones of it, I think, are good. Graphically, it looks great. Design wise, I think I think the acting is mostly good. I think the writing at times suffers. But I would say like this is like a 6 for me. Like there's room for improvement. It's not a bad game. I wouldn't say it's a bad game by any means, but I think my expectations were just a little too high, even though you both had kind of put them in the basement.
Yeah, I mean, I think I like back to your point though. Like, I think the thing is here is like I had 0 technical issues. I had none. I did not have a single glitch, a single texture pop in, a single stutter in the frame rate. Nothing. Absolutely
at the
no
beginning.
technical errors. I didn't. I had none. Well, I know
I don't think I did
when you
either.
started playing it, they hadn't released the patch yet. So like it made sense for you to have them. And supposed to, and after the patch, like if bugs all disappear, that's how that patch should work. But you look at games like Pokemon, or you look at games like Saints Row,
Yeah.
or Gotham Knights, which got like very lukewarm receptions because of things like bugs and whatnot. Those games were fun. The problem is like halfway through this game, it just becomes like, okay, well, I've played the first half, and this is what the rest of the game is going to be.
Yeah.
And then you get to a point where you can start guessing, and like it's not even a guess at that point. You know exactly when they're going to try to scare you. You know exactly when an enemy's going to pop out. And so the thrill of being scared, which was what like I really think elevated the beginning of the game, even though I wasn't really enjoying a lot of the gameplay mechanics. Once the scares went away and it became very humdrum in terms of like, I know what's going to happen around this next corner. And sure enough, it does. Once that was gone, the mystique was gone, the thrill was gone. It was like, all right, when the fuck is this game going to end? And what they do at that point is ruin the game even worse. And I'm going to spoil the shit out of this one moment because this is the worst thing I've ever played through.
Spoilers.
Do it, baby.
Spoilers. Big spoilers. They make you do a mandatory 1.5 hour long, potentially 2 hours stealth section. And let me tell you, the stealth in this game is so broken. It is hilarious. You can literally walk into enemies while crouching and they will not notice that you're there.
Really? I didn't have that experience.
Okay. I literally
You for the most part can. It's basically
if you attack in that moment, like everyone gets alerted and you're fucked because there's no way that you can get out of it. Like you're dead. Like you can't kill all these enemies. But I had moments where I literally stood. I was like, I just want to test this. I don't even care whether the fuck the checkpoint is. Like I'm just curious if this is gonna happen. I literally walked into an area. There was like 8 enemies, and I crouched all the way into the middle of it and just sat there. And I got hit multiple times by enemies who just walked into me like I was a brick wall. And then turned around and walked the opposite direction. I was like, you're fucking kidding me.
When you're not moving, they won't react. But if you're moving and they run into you, they will.
Yeah. But that's the thing, though. Mm-hmm. If you're just standing still and they run into you, you should still be attacked. I'm sorry.
Sure. But they do like the enemies are blind. So like for all they know, they're running into a wall.
I don't look. I here's the thing. I understand logically how that could make sense. It doesn't
Sure.
make sense when this is a video game.
Sure.
Because you have to, just on both sides, like both the player has to suspend their disbelief for certain things to work. But I've never been in a situation where the game developer did not suspend their own disbelief. Because then at that point, I'm like, okay, well, once it hits me and it doesn't do anything, I just walk past it.
Yeah.
And that's how I went through that whole area. And I was like, this is just boring.
I didn't have that exact same experience, but similarly, that segment is when it really felt like I was playing a video game. And well, like, oh, sure, this is a video game podcast. We come here to play video games, but like, this is a very narrative heavy video game. This is a very like, they want you to feel like you are this character whose name I've already forgotten in this world. And
yeah, what is the character's name?
Is it Jacob?
Jacob.
Shit, fuck if I know.
I mean, he looks like a Jacob.
Yeah,
but like
Kyle. He looks like a Kyle.
He does look like a Kyle. But yeah, like there are games in which I think it might behoove the player to be like recognizing like, oh, I'm playing a video game. But then I think there are games where like I think they don't want you to feel like you're playing a video game. They want you to feel like you are experiencing the story. And that's the vibe I got from the Callisto Protocol. By the end of, not even by the end of the game, by the middle of the game, from the whole second half of the game, it's as if like the facade of the game was gone and I could just see through all the cracks of it. And like, so I didn't have that issue with that specific qualm you had, but like I could go down a list of a bunch of other ones, like, and it's things that just like broke the game for me, that it's like, well, I just don't feel like I'm having a good time anymore because I'm it's not even like about cheesing it. It's that like I'm breaking this game and they are giving me the tools to do so. And therefore there are no stakes. There is no stress. There is no horror in this game anymore.
Yes.
And you know what? I like the game. I think it subconsciously annoys you because I just thought of this. Throughout this whole experience, you're getting narrated to and talked to through your controller from this Australian guy who's also in the prison, and he just straight up lies to you about everything. Like you're almost out from the beginning of the game. You're gonna get out in 1 minute. You're gonna be like, no, just right through this room, blood, and then we're gonna be on this thing. And then that doesn't happen. Anybody just keeps doing that for every single thing, and you're just like, buddy, I know we're not done. And you just never, and it's just like, I know that this is just another BS thing to get to the next BS thing. And it's like 3 levels too far in each like type of level that you should be in. And it does too much of, again, it tries to be almost Resident Evil and The Last of Us, and it's neither of those at all. The game should be more linear, and it tries to be sometimes a little bit like it's total linear. You're going down linear, and then it just tries to, it's just like, wait, I'm confused. What happened? This Aussie guy told me to go somewhere. I don't really have any of this stuff to do anything. Now I'm like locked in this next spot. I got nothing. Like what? You just kind of get mad and you're like, I just want to be done. Just want to be done.
To add to that, like with the kind of where it's linear and then it kind of like stops being linear at times, that also really frustrated me that there was no map, because they make it seem at the beginning like, oh, this really is going to be like, I'm just going down a hallway this whole game. And then there are times when the path branches and you realize if you go down one way, the game will continue. If you go down the other way, it usually like loops you back around to go back to kind of like where you just were, and you'll get various resources down that pathway. But it became so frustrating playing the game, not knowing which way was the path I was supposed to go, because I'm the kind of player that I want to know which way is the path so that I can do the other path first, because I want to experience everything that you've spent 4 years building. I want to get all the story. I want to get all the collectibles. I want to get all the resources. But there were so many times and maybe this is by design because they wanted me to go play it again, but I think that's just a shitty business practice.
Okay. Hear me out.
Yeah.
Not worth even exploring. There's nothing worth exploring for this game. because the inventory is so limited that more often than not, when you do go down one of those optional corridors you don't realize is optional, do you know what waits for you? Something you can't even put into your inventory. And what that thing is, you just sell it.
I think you got gypped, Cayman, because we Patrick and I definitely had 12 slots in our inventory. We must have unlocked it sooner than you. You must have just had 6 the whole game and we're just furious. Because I was furious of just having ammo everywhere in the 12, but I was still trying to pick stuff up like all the time.
No,
that was the only thing that I kind of liked.
I was trying to pick up shit all the time. It was just like, oh, guess what? I just have, because I was like, okay, well, the game is like, if you get hit, especially in the first half of the game, if you get hit once, you're like half health. I think you can get like a total of 4 total hits and you're dead, right? Maybe not even 4, maybe
something
3.
Like that.
Yeah. So you only have 6 inventory slots. So it's almost mandatory, especially because your guns aren't strong enough to really do a ton of damage, because the game also doesn't really give you any hints on how you should play the game, which I think is another shitty thing, because like a game like Elden Ring, the whole thing is you have the freedom of choice and they give you tons of different ways to go about how you want to do it. This game is so narrative, or so linear, that like you don't really have a freedom in how you should play the game, but they don't really give you any hints outside of like the mandatory tutorial on how you can be stealthy. They don't really tell you how to really do anything else.
They give you fake hints.
I feel like I was getting tutorialed out the ass. Like I feel like I was getting pop-ups all of the time.
You got tutorialed out the ass in the beginning, but the tutorials don't really tell you, like they tell you how to use like optional things you can do, but then like those things don't really work very well.
It doesn't do good because the controls suck.
Yeah. Sorry. I know Patrick has like a differing opinion, but my thing was like, okay, I need to have a mandatory of 3 health kits in my thing. Well, guess what? That's half of my inventory.
Sure.
And so you're like, okay, because you have these enemies that spit at you, and there's literally almost no fucking way to dodge. You can't dodge them. They say you can dodge them.
They
but
say
Patrick
you can, but
tried
you
it out, and I did too, and you can't. So you have moments like that. So it's like, okay, well, you have to have 3 mandatory health kits. Well, then the rest of your shit's ammo, because you need ammo. And so any of these optional things you pick up, which are like pristine energy converters or pristine batteries or shit, it's like, I don't have space for this crap.
I'm realizing, I think the error from striking distance, that because of the way that I was playing, it didn't affect me. But if you didn't play like me, then it would ruin your game like it did for you. Because I was so melee focused and I kind of mastered the dodging and meleeing, I only ever had like 1 health pack at a time, sometimes 2. And then I had a couple of the pull juices, whatever that stuff was. And then I had like 1 or 2 ammo. So I usually had like 1 or 2 open slots at all times. And then if there was a section where there was a lot of enemies and I used like the ammo that I had, then I was like, oh, well, now I have essentially like an empty inventory.
So,
but it's because I was very much like, I rarely used ammunition unless I was overwhelmed.
And so I tried to do that. But the problem is, at a certain point in the game, though, is they just keep adding more and more enemies in.
Yeah.
And if you are in a combo, an enemy can still hit you and knocks you out of your combo, and then you get swarmed. So it's like, okay, so you need to try to figure out a way to lure one enemy to you, kill it, and then move to the next. And I guess maybe one of my biggest problems, and this could just be the way I played the game, was that I was playing it like I would have played a Resident Evil. And this game is not Resident Evil. This game is like, okay, we're going to give you everything that Resident Evil is, but we're not going to like let you actually play like that. Like you have to play it different, but it's Resident Evil the way that the game should be worked in every other aspect besides the actual gameplay part, which is like, no. This is a survival horror game. And it's like, all right, guys, like, there's a crisis of conscience here, because if the way that the game needs to work, then you should have like 1, 2 enemies. But there's moments in this game where it's like, we're going to dump 6, 8, we're going to give you waves of enemies. And it's just like, okay. So like I found out at a certain point, I was like, okay, about midway through the game, I'm like, shoot him in the knee, let him drop to the ground, and then you can come up and whack him in the head. And then you can like stomp on their head or whatever. And I was like, okay, once I could get that worked out, like then I'm able to kind of breeze through more of this shit. But ultimately at the end of the day, I'm like, this is boring. that gameplay method is boring, and this does not compute with me.
I feel like, and I think this can be our segue into talking a little bit about the story. I feel like so often it's like they just didn't want to make a choice. It's like they wanted to kind of leave there are multiple ways, but like not in a clear way. And I feel like that happened with the story a lot. Like, I don't want to necessarily just start with the end. So maybe let's
do it.
Okay, sure. Let's start with the very end of the story for those of you who did play this game, or you just don't care. Even the final moment of this story, they like can't even make a decision. They immediately go back on what they said. So essentially, like they set up at the beginning of the game that Karen Fukuhara's character is like your enemy. She swarms your ship. She causes you to crash, all this stuff. And then eventually you guys team up. Saw it coming from a mile away, whatever. End of the game, you let her get away. You put her in this, whatever you call it, to like it's a pod. To get off.
Yep.
Yeah, to get off the planet. And cuts to her, and she's like doing a voiceover. She's like, Jacob sacrificed himself, but gave me the evidence I need to take down the bad guys. And then it cuts to Jacob, and he's alive. And then this doctor that you've been spending a lot of the time with is like shows up, and it's like, so wait, is he dead? Is he not dead? It's like they immediately they go back on their narrative bullshit.
Hold on. Yeah. No, that doctor that you just said you spent a lot of time with is a false statement. You spend a cumulative 45 minutes of a 9-hour game with her.
Sure. I guess you spent a lot of time with her in the end, like the last, like,
well, she's
most of those 45 minutes are at the end of the game.
She's just, this is the thing that I had such a big issue with story-wise with this, is the last 45 minutes, you have this doctor chatting your ear off the whole time, and literally exposition dumps the entire plot in the last 45 minutes.
Essentially, yeah.
Yep. And we're not even talking about the boss fight at the end.
If I could,
it was just terrible.
If I could explain it, I think pretty well. So catch me where I get wrong.
Great.
You are Josh Duhamel, whatever his name is. You are this
Jacob,
sorry.
Kyle.
This cool pilot guy.
Kyle Motocross.
Precisely. Kyle Motocross dropping off some cool, like, illegal stuff or whatever in this weird bandity type of planet. It's all cold.
Well, he doesn't think it's illegal. He thinks it's medical supplies.
Exactly. And then he crashes, and lo and behold, that the planet is just a prison hold. And they go, "Yeah, we don't give a shit who you are. Like, you're the pilot. Sure, you're going in the prison." Goes in the prison.
Cool premise.
Cool premise. I'm hooked. Then the whole game is just what you think, right? You are trying to get out of this prison. It just kind of all looks the same in different areas. There's tons of blood. They don't explain anything of the story. And then 10 hours later, this lady just goes in a cutscene and goes, "Yeah, all that Resident Evil story, bitch. We were just making up some crazy shit and just fucked over all these people, and all those things you were fighting were actually these things that we made, and it's the prisoner, and get off of the planet and keep the capsule."
That we're trying
to
speed
That's the
up
whole thing.
Human evolution, but we failed in the process. So what we're going to do is we're going to continue to do this process until we find someone who this evolution sticks
this alpha
with.
Male. Did either of you, when you were walking around, especially the latter, like, third, so like the final third of the game, did either of you happen to start coming across, I forget what they were called, there's like the Circle or something, this like Illuminati type?
Yeah, there's 2 rooms that secret areas you can find.
I found one of the 2. I didn't find this. Find the second one.
There's 2 rooms, and they give you essentially, like, they set up and give you a little hint that, like, there's a universe-wide Illuminati.
It's
that
so
is speeding
boring.
up human evolution. It is the most unoriginal shit. Then at the end, you have Sam Witwer, who is like essentially your antagonist, who is the chief security guard. He is what they believe is going to be the alpha, right? So in your last boss fight, you find out the warden, who is part of this Illuminati, is off planet. And then you have to fight the alpha. And essentially the guy's just like, I guess whoever is the one who makes it out alive is the real alpha. And it's like, no, that doesn't work, because Josh Duhamel is not infected.
Yeah.
So he's not an alpha.
He's not Mr. X.
Unless that's a big reveal for game 2, because they leave you on a cliffhanger that, like, he's going to, like, Josh Duhamel's character, who is set up to die, does not die, obviously. Then you get like this big, oh no,
maybe you can escape. What?
Yeah. And then you get attacked by Sam Witwer again. Okay, but either way, the final boss fight. This is
the
my
guy
problem.
you just killed attacks you. It's like, what?
This is the final boss fight. And I think this is where this is a culmination of like all of the bad decisions this game has made. This final boss fight essentially tells you everything that you've learned the last 10 hours means nothing.
Mm-hmm.
You can't, like, the whole game is like, you really need to melee. But this enemy type, you can only shoot. You can't melee it. There's no ability to melee this enemy. So if you don't go into this fight full of ammunition, there's not enough ammunition, and picking up ammunition and reloading takes so long that by the time it took me 6 attempts to kill it on easy mode because I was like, I just cannot get my brain around how this is supposed to work.
Yeah, you actually saved me with the final boss because you had told me a few hours before, don't waste your credits on the alternate fire for any of your guns. So it was like, great. That just saved me 20,000 credits. So my pistol was fully upgraded, my stun baton was fully upgraded, and I had all these extra credits. So I was like, okay, like right before the final fight, I'm like, I have like 20,000 credits. I might as well build this machine gun, build this other like Magnum shotgun, like rocket launcher, whatever. So I went into the final fight loaded to the fucking nines because I had all this extra money. And so then I had all this ammunition. So this gun that I just unlocked, this machine gun, I just loaded like 3 rounds into him and killed him. It was like the easiest boss fight in a video game for me. And so that's kudos to Cayman for that.
I went into it with almost no ammunition because I didn't realize that was the end of the fucking game. So it was a miserable experience.
I can tell.
And it just, I don't know. And it was just like it was the shit icing on a shit cake.
Sure.
When you end a game and you're like, I literally am struggling, not because I'm bad at this game. I'm struggling because no one gave me an indication this game was about to end. I needed to have bukus of ammunition.
John, I feel the ratings drop in y'all's head as you discuss the plot.
I think I'm a 6. I'm a 6 now. Yeah, it's a 6.
I'm sticking with 5 because I do think that, like, and I think it's very important to say this, like, there's a lot that this game does thematically in the term of its atmosphere, and it is the most AAA shit you'll ever see.
Yeah.
It's just like, I don't know what went wrong.
Yeah, it's such a missed opportunity.
Yeah. So like, I think if they go back to the drawing board and they're like, okay, let's take the criticism, let's not get disheartened, and let's build off of this. There is a game here that's really good. This game isn't.
Yeah. My last thing on it, and then if you guys have any closing thoughts, and then we can move on. The protagonist of this game should have been Karen Fukuhara's character.
Yes.
Because I thought Josh Duhamel's character was the most vanilla ass fucking.
Oh my god,
vanilla milkshake.
Kyle Motocross
was the most boring ass character. I wanted to learn more about her character, and we got some cool shit from her toward the end of the game. And so even if, of course, they didn't make her the protagonist, she was in this game 1/10 of the amount she should have been because she was like the only interesting part of this game. So it's a shame that she wasn't in more of it. And I hope if they get a sequel, which looking at the sales numbers from last month, not sure that that's going to happen because pulling from IGN last week, it was outsold by games that were released 7, 10, 12 years ago in its first month. So I don't know. This might not bode well for the game, but I thought ultimately if this game was from her perspective, maybe it could have been saved a little bit because the character at least would have been interesting, but Jacob was just a boring ass character. But what are y'all's final thoughts?
Yeah, final thoughts here. I mean, I love Josh Duhamel as an actor, and I actually did like him a lot. It's just that Kimiko is just so hot in the streets right now. She's just such a badass, and I just wanted more of her, and I just wish we had it. Honestly, when this game becomes $15, $20, we can call it the Callisto booty call. It's a cheap date. That's when you should get it.
Yeah, I can't disagree with anything Mike said. Literally, if this game is $20 or less, pick it up. It's not like you're gonna. I mean, you're probably not gonna have a great time with it, but like, you're probably not even really gonna have a good time with it. But like, if it's $20, like, it's worth at least the first 4 hours because you'll get the shit scared out of you several times, and it's really cool. And then the game sucks. So like, if it's $20, who fucking cares at that point? That's like, honestly, $20 is like going to fucking Wendy's right now and getting a Baconator.
4 for 4,
like,
baby.
Yeah, fair. So like, I would say, I think for my closing thoughts, it's like, look, this is a definite miss opportunity, but like there could be something if they do get a sequel, which I don't know if they ever will, but like there is a game here that could be really good. And it's just a bummer. I think that's the biggest thing. It's just a bummer.
It's such a catch-22 because I'm like, I want a sequel, but if it's not going to sell, it's not going to get a sequel. Yeah. I don't know what Striking Distance would do next. I don't know if they'd start over or if they would just hope that they can make a lot of money back on the sequel. But can I just point out that I think this is the first time I've played a game, or at least the first time for at least 2022, because I've technically played it in 2022. This is the first time that I've played a game that scored poorly that I absolutely agree got the correct score. Lately, at least, at the very least. Yeah, which is like shocking for me because normally I go into like shitty reviewed games and I'm like, yeah, there's fun to be had here. I enjoyed myself. This is one of the only times I'm like, yeah, this was fucking spot on. They got it right. Bummer. Well, if you've played the Callisto Protocol, let us know what you thought. Obviously, we just spent like 35 minutes talking a bunch of shit about it. Yeah. But if you have played it, if you have a differing opinion, or if you have the same opinion, let us know. Send us a comment, send us an email, mail@spotlightgames.net. You can DM us. You can drop it on the YouTube comments, whatever you want to do. Let us know. Come to the chat like John is in the chat right now. Let us know. But that's all we have to say about the Callisto Protocol. Buyer beware, I guess. But hey, you're your own person, so make your own choices.